Welcome in to the Cover 5 podcast. I am your host, Jordan Vanek. You can find me over on Twitter at Jordan Vanek DFS. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Hilo at HiloFF over on the Twitter. Hilo, I'm sorry for your Green Bay Packers this past weekend. That was a rough one for you because you guys should have won that game, which was extremely surprising to my end, but definitely one of the ones that you have a bright future at least. You're kind of similar to where the Texans are, where you're like, oh, well, we had way better year than you thought you were going to have, and you also got the gift of no more Joe Barry on defense.
Yes.
Hopefully, someone new comes in. Which do you want Brandon Staley or no?
I think Staley's fine as a DC. When he is managing a team, he's bass backwards. Yeah, it was very bittersweet. I knew, like, for the future, it was probably better that we lost that game. But at the same time, like, holy hell, after week 12, Packers fans did not think we had a chance at anything. I mean, we were kind of writing it off like, oh, where are we gonna end up in the draft? And then we went on a torrid stretch, won 7-9 to get into the postseason, won that wild card game. So it was kind of like playing with house money a little bit, but at the same time, it was like, man, we gave that game away. Like,
Yeah,
he just
I mean,
stopped playing in the fourth quarter.
hey, those receivers though, Dontavian Wicks blocking Chase Young and Bosa was
Yeah,
a special
holy.
one. But let's get into the championship weekend where we will be breaking down both games from a DFS perspective. I say we talk about some things from a showdown side of things as well as the two-game slate. We're going to start off Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Baltimore. Baltimore's hosting their first ever AFC championship. You also have the spot of they're bringing out everybody. Did you see the list of people who are attending this one? They
No.
have T Sizzle, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, like being like honorary captains, legends of the game,
Yeah.
Jonathan Ogden. Just they're bringing everybody out for this. Obviously, biggest game of Lamar Jackson's career. He gets an at-home playoff berth against the Kansas City Chiefs offense that has clicked. I'm going to put it in quotation marks the last 2 weeks because they haven't played any like healthy defense. They've played defenses. They played some good schemes. However, though AJ Klein played 98% of the snaps last week as a linebacker, he wasn't on a team 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what is your take on this Kansas City offense and just starting over overall thoughts on this game with Baltimore?
There's really one primary thing that is different this year for the Kansas City Chiefs because they're still moving the ball. I mean, they're seventh or eighth in yards per game. They're still doing the things between the 20s that we've grown accustomed to with this Kansas City Chiefs team under Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But they are trash this year in the red zone. You look at their red zone touchdown rate; they have dropped 19% in red zone touchdown rate compared to last season. That is the second highest drop in red zone touchdown rate this season, second only to the Daniel Jones-less New York Giants. So you look at this game, it's very, very interesting because we have two of the top five defenses in most metrics from around the league. No matter where you look, they're top five in most metrics. So yards per game, games or points allowed per game, all these, they're very stout against the pass. And these defenses now are very different and they're run schematically different than they have in the past as well. One, the Baltimore Ravens have struggled with some linebacker injuries. We know the secondary injuries that they've had this season. But still, through all of that, they're still a top two team against the pass, no matter pretty much wherever you look. And that speaks volumes to this defensive scheme that Mike McDonald has instilled here. So it's very, very interesting to dissect this game because we have two offenses that are moving the football with the best of them. The Ravens ranked number 2 in red zone touchdown rate this season, which is why they put up 30 or more points in 8 of their final 10 games this season. They are scoring points. We talk a lot about the San Francisco 49ers and their ability to score 30 points almost at very regularly. Almost, they were 10 of 13 with Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy, their full supporting cast at scoring 30 plus points this season. The Ravens went 8 of 10. 8 of their final 10 games, they scored 30 or more points. So They are clicking on offense. And both of these defenses are top 5 units. And now the big question mark is, are the Kansas City Chiefs going to be able to score when they, which they are likely to do, move the football into the red zone? When we look at last week, they only ran 47 offensive plays. They still had 7 possessions. They scored on 5 of them. One was a possession at the end of the first half where they ran one play, were sacked, and took a knee after. The other, they scored on 4. Wait, I don't know. They had that one possession at the end of the first half. They had that turnover that was a fumble into the end zone, and they had one punt at the end of the game. That was it. So they had 8 total possessions. They scored on 5 of them, including all 3 first half possessions. So this team is clicking. But they are still, their first 2 possessions last week against the Bills, they had to kick field goals because their drive stalled in the red zone. So that is like the key deciding factor for how this game is going to play out, in my opinion, is, are the Kansas City Chiefs going to be able to score when they enter the red zone? So the fact that we have these 2 offenses that are moving the football, these 2 defenses that are top 5 units, it just introduces this rather wide range of outcomes for this game itself. Because we know these offenses, the primary pieces are like high concentration amongst the primary pieces. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs, 54% of their targets in the postseason have gone to one of 2 guys. It's gone to Travis Kelce or Rashee Rice. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, 1 guy is playing a near every down role, and that is rookie wide receiver Zay Flowers. There's some uncertainty there with Mark Andrews. Is he going to come back to a full allotment of snaps? I would think probably not. He did get in 2 full practices at the end of last week. They ultimately held him out. But yeah, this game just has a really wide range of outcomes. And if you look at like schematically how each team is likeliest to move the football, it's heavily biased towards the ground. So that should do a couple things. That should suppress overall total play volume. And it should also like present these opportunities for splash plays. The Chiefs and the Ravens have both been very good defensively at suppressing splash plays, but the fact that we expect both of these teams to kind of focus or have at least the most success, because we know the Kansas City Chiefs are high pass rate over expectation team. We know that they're near the top of the league in pass attempts per game, but where they should find the most success is on the ground, and what that opens up behind it through the air is the big question. So that was a long roundabout way of basically just diarrhea of the mouth. I'm mouthing my way through that. But yeah, this game has a wide range of outcomes, and I think the overall how it's going to unfold probably comes down to the Chiefs' ability to put the football in the end zone from the red zone.
Yeah, the Ravens have dominated every top scheme. The one coach that actually put up a lot of points on them with their particular scheme was Sean McVay and the Rams. Not that Mahomes can't do it. I've seen this offense stall so much throughout this year. They somewhat got better these past 2 weekends, but it's like with that, those were just teams that were just depleted. Like Xavier Howard wasn't playing. Jerome Baker wasn't playing. Javon Holland wasn't playing. They were starting James Houston and Bruce Irvin as their edge rushers. They didn't, the Dolphins didn't have a defense. They were also just blitzing and just praying that
they had to.
Yeah, Eli Apple and them would hold it up in one-on-one situations, and it actually kind of worked. They made that a very not competitive game, was the word I would say, but it wasn't Chiefs just rolling them.
That was their only chance.
They weren't. It didn't feel like, wow, there's just nothing Miami could have done against this Mahomes offense. It was like, man, Tua and the offense can't do anything against Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense has been what has impressed me the most this postseason, because obviously all year Spags. Those defensive backs and what they're doing is just tremendous. But
now they have a bunch of injuries too, which is interesting too. They have an injury at every level in the defense this week.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is Mark Andrews is back. You talked about the Ravens having 8 of their last 10 games with over 30. Yeah. How many games was Mark Andrews available for that?
4 of them.
4? Yeah, 4 of them. That's like for me, I'm looking at it. Well, the Ravens, from a personnel standpoint, are going to be a nightmare. They run 3 tight ends, and one of their tight ends is Patrick Ricard, and then they throw out of that
Yeah.
formation because Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are great receivers. They did it with Charlie Collier, like they're going to do it with Mark Andrews. They receiver wise, they just rotate and they don't
Yeah.
really hyper target any of them because there's just no reason. They just kind of look up like, oh, who's winning today? Like, is it Zay Flowers? Cool. Like, we want Zay Flowers to be the guy, but we don't need him to be the guy. Like, their best receiver had what? I think Zay Flowers, was it Zay Flowers who or Rashad Bateman who had no, Zay Flowers had 41 yards last week and they won by 3 scores.
Yeah, he was their
That's
top receiver, but he only saw like 6 targets and put up 41
yeah.
yards or
It
something.
was like they don't need any of them to individually be great. And it's like the Chiefs have been dealing with teams that need one player to do that. Like the Bills needed Diggs. The Dolphins needed Tyreek Hill. This is a team that they don't need anybody in particular. They just need somebody. And that's going to be a really intriguing factor. And then on top of it, again, I talked about the Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs playing so well. If you're going 3 tight ends with Patrick Ricard, you're
Yeah.
taking one of those good defensive backs off the field and you're putting another linebacker, and that is what has killed this coverage all season long for the Chiefs. Their linebackers have been bad in space. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, but overall, it's
Yeah.
just a very difficult group. And then the whole statistic about the Chiefs being a bad run defense from shotgun formations, um, I don't know. I don't buy too much into that because like the whole league doesn't exactly defend the run great at a shotgun, and the Chiefs get you into a lot of 3rd and longs and a lot of like those negative plays. So teams run halfback draws against them, and then they give up a ton of yards because that's just what usually happens when you run a halfback draw against that. And then also the Raiders, they just bullied them in their game. So the way I see this game playing out, I think it's a low scoring one personally. I think that the Baltimore Ravens defense is something that it's going to go back to what we saw with the Chiefs during the regular season, where it's like, wow, why can't they move the football? Why are they struggling again? And maybe Kelsey has a drop or two because that's another thing that has happened plenty this year where
Yeah.
it's like drive killers. And then the Baltimore side of things, I don't think they're going to be an explosive offense. I do believe they're going to be a methodical one. Like
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Jackson, he's what, top 5 all time in rushing yards per game in the playoffs of anybody. He's averaging like 92 yards rushing per game. Last week he ran for 100 again in 2 scores.
102. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the way from a DFS perspective that I'm going to be playing this game, I think you could just go Lamar and Kelsey and just do a mini stack in that way. I don't think you need to overstack Lamar.
Yeah. So this is a very weird game because we talked about the fact that like Rashee Rice, Travis Kelsey, and
Pacheco?
no, well, yeah, I guess Rashee Rice, Travis Kelsey, Pacheco, and then like Zay Flowers. Those are the only players that we should expect to see 80% of the offensive snaps or more. And out of all the skill position players in this game.
Yeah.
But what that also does is it provides a path to value for all the secondary and tertiary guys. I mean, Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman,
I don't know if you could
Isaiah
trust Odell,
Likely.
man. Odell
You
ran
can't
8
trust
routes, man.
you
He's
can't
so
trust any of
frustrating.
these guys. But if one of those guys scores at sub 4K salary,
Yeah.
to Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling,
Yeah.
Noah Gray, like any of these guys, if any of these guys score, they're going to be in the optimal conversation because this slate, the overall like macro, how it's built right now, it's very top heavy as far as salary goes. So like we want to play Lamar, we want to play some of these guys from the San Francisco and Lions game that we're going to talk about here shortly. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel if he plays, Brandon Ayuk if Deebo is out, or even if Deebo's in, Brandon Ayuk represents. We'll talk about that here shortly. But all these guys are priced up. Christian McCaffrey. We want to play all those guys, but it's like, how do we fit those guys in? We need something in the form of value, and I think this game probably brings that value piece. I have no freaking clue who it's going to be. I
I
named
would
6,
bet.
7 guys.
I mean, personally, I would bet on Bateman for Baltimore. I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
he's going to
like,
come off the field. I know that Zay and him played like the full-time role with Likely last week. Likely shouldn't be in the full-time role just because of Mark Andrews. I don't hate Likely in this aspect at all, but Rashad Bateman seems to be the player that he can, like, Lamar can lean on even when it's kind of contested. Like
well, I
the
mean,
player
like,
that gets those, 3rd and 6, he wins on a slant. That type of play.
even so, I mean, like, you say Bateman was that every down player. He played 65% of the snaps last week.
80% of the routes, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, Nelson Aguilar was not too far behind him, around 60% of the routes. So,
Yeah.
this is very difficult for like human psychology to get through. Is that like, I know what situation will put a player in the best position to accrue fantasy points. Like we know it's volume in backfields, we know it's routes run, and all the other shit that we look at through the air. I'm saying like that stuff might not matter here as far as these guys that are priced 4,500 and below, and there's 7 or 8 of them from this game, because one of them is highly likely to see 4 to 6 targets and put up something like a 40 and a 4 for 40 line that is probably going to matter, or score a touchdown. Like if like Noah Gray scores a touchdown, and then one of the 3 big tight ends like Sam Laporta, George Kittle, and Travis Kelce puts the slate out of reach. Would that be like in the optimal discussion? Probably.
Yeah.
Is it also possible for like 2 of those 3 elite tight ends to put up a score that just puts all the other wide receivers out of reach? Like, yeah. So this is just a very interesting slate. Is like, where's the value coming from? Another potential option is Justice Hill. I mean, he is likely, I would say, to see that like lead 1A to the 1B, 1C role, I think, out of the backfield. He has seen, 56% or more of the offensive snaps in 3 out of the last 4 games for Baltimore. He has led the team in running back opportunities in 3 out of the last 4 games.
Well,
Dalvin Cook is back. We don't know, or Dalvin Cook
he didn't
is
play till
there.
the 4th, though. He didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Dalvin Cook
So it's
didn't take
like,
a snap till there.
I mean, what is Gus Edwards? Gus Edwards is that like early down short yardage grinder. Like Justice Hill at least brings like, and the reason I say that is he's priced at 4,800. He's 500 less than Gus Edwards. He also is the 2-minute drill back. He also is the preferred pass catching down back. So he has more outs, we'll say. As far as like Gus Edwards, you need him to rumble because this is relatively like okay matchup, pretty difficult all around. You need him to like get 80 yards and a score. If he doesn't do that, he's not going to do anything for fantasy lineups. So at least Justice Hill like gives you, hey, he probably leads the team in snap rate. Hey, he probably leads the team in running back opportunities. He has the 2-minute drill role. He has the potential pass catching role. So I don't know. Justice Hill is another potential salary saver from this game, I think.
No, I don't mind Justice Hill at all. Again, we're attacking, like the way to beat the Chiefs is attacking your linebackers in coverage. The way you attack linebackers in coverage is usually slot receivers, running backs, tight ends. They're not going to get their linebacker on Zay Flowers. If they do, that's just okay. I guess Spags wants to lose there. They're going to be playing a lot of cover 4, a lot of cover 2. They're going to be playing a lot of zone, which they can press on it, but like Mina Kimes talked about it on the podcast with, I can't think of who else, but she was talking about Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the NFL against 4-man rushes. He's the best quarterback in the NFL when you blitz him. Lamar Jackson has just been like statistically the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, there's no one thing that they could do. They're just going to have to, like, the Ravens lost to the Steelers this year. If you watch that game, the amount of drops that the Ravens had, that Lamar was just throwing money balls, it was like, how are we, how is this happening? The Chiefs are going to have to just find a way to just stay on top of everything and contain them, but I don't.
Yeah, and look what Josh Allen was able to do to exploit the Chiefs last weekend. Yeah, they didn't spy him. Well, I mean, they wanted to, but the player that they would have had spying him left the game, which was Willie Gay, which he's also has not practiced this week. So
Yeah.
That's another interesting aspect of this game is like, how do they handle the mobility of Lamar Jackson? And I don't think they have an answer. Their answer was Willie Gay, and he's probably not going to play.
Yeah, I don't think they really have that answer. But overall, though, so from this game, from like DFS perspective, rank the big three of the Chiefs: Pacheco, Kelsey, and Rashee Rice.
I mean, dude, that's freaking hard to do. Any one of them, and it is probably so. If I'm Andy Reid, like, how am I approaching this game? I'm probably wanting a higher early down rush rate than I've had in the past. And that is like, that sounds completely foreign because we sit up here and we talk about like, hey, teams need to be passing more on first down. It's almost the opposite for the Chiefs because of how, yeah. But in this spot, because of how freaking good this secondary is, how freaking good Mike McDonald's defensive scheme has been, their chances of gaining 4 or 5 yards on first down are probably greater with Pacheco than they are unless we start seeing Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice being utilized differently, because over the second half of the season, they're opening up that offense was basically running them on higher percentage routes down the field. They were running higher percentage of their routes, the 5 to 9 routes, as opposed to Rashee Rice when he came into the league. He was basically just running a shit ton of slants and not really any of these upside generating routes. Travis Kelce, you look at his utilization in the playoffs this season, and he has kind of been this run 8 yards and turn around guy. That is not going to cut it in this spot. So to me, I need more. If I'm Andy Reid, I need more crossing motions. I need more running across the field. I need to make sure that I am picking up 4 to 5 yards on first down. I would think that is most likely to come through Pacheco, and that sounds so freaking weird to say.
Man. It's just,
I know.
It's just this Ravens
like
defense
backwards.
is different, man.
They're last week, dude.
Like last week, I could see the Mahomes Josh Allen game being scoring. I had said it on the show last week, and I kind of felt that way. I mean, Mike McDonald's done it all to the Shanahan schemes. But this is an Andy Reid one. This is gonna be a little bit different. And with Kelsey's route, it's so funny because it's like this man just runs the open space. Like, I don't know how people chart his routes because it feels like he just goes and he's like, what coverage are they playing? Like, that's what's going through his head. What coverage are they playing? How are they operating? Where's the soft spot? Cool, I'm going there. And Mahomes is like, where's Kelsey? Where's Kelsey? I'm going to run around. Where is he? He's there. Got him. And MVS came up big last week with a big long catch there. But I don't know why they keep giving the ball to McCole Hardman near the goal line. It was a good play call. I just wish they would run it with Richie James.
Was it you that said on Twitter, hey, you don't want the NFL rule to be... somebody said on Twitter, is like if you don't like the fumble out of the back of the end zone rule, like, don't give the ball to McCole Hardman.
No, that wasn't me.
Somebody said that. I was laughing.
I think, just on topic to that, I think the rule for that should be like loss of down and you're at the 15 from goal line. So like if that was a third down and goal, you go to the 15 and it's fourth and goal. If you have a player who catches a freaking bomb and goes all the way, and try Justin Jefferson against the Eagles last year, it's second and goal from the 15. Like, I think it should be you shouldn't be able to get the first down without a penalty, and you should be at the 15 because that is where our extra points are. And if it's a field goal, that's an extra point. It kind of feels fair. We've seen that be missed. And I don't want to
change of possession is terrible.
It's just too significant of a penalty, considering if we fumble out of the one, you're just at the one. Like, you should just be losing the down and losing yards because you did fumble out of the end zone. It should just be a 15-yard. But regardless, that's nor here nor there. We're not in the rules changing thing. So on the Ravens side, are you going to be playing into the uncertainty of Mark Andrews, or are you going to be waiting to see where, projections put him at with the field and how they're reacting to it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting theoretical discussion to have. If we did not have like elite options at the tight end position, The answer would be more leaned towards yes, buying into Mark Andrews. The fact that Sam Laporta is on the slate, the fact that George Kittle, the fact that Travis Kelce are on the slate is a thinner road or a thinner needle to thread for Mark Andrews to be meaningful unless he is seeing a full allotment of snaps. The other side of that equation is the ownership piece. We know that Travis Kelce, that Sam Laporta, that George Kittle are going to see ownership. We know that that's probably going to be even more if Deebo Samuel doesn't play amongst those three guys, because George Kittle would likely see his ownership leap off the page. But at the same time, have you looked at ownership? I haven't looked at ownership yet.
I haven't looked at it just because I want to get the full clearance on just all the injury reports before I even bother.
I'm gonna check it out real quick because in order to accurately answer that question, I think we need to look at ownership. So I'm gonna.
Because I think Kelce's popping.
Noah Gray is projected for more ownership than Mark Andrews, so that tells you about as much.
Yeah, it's not going to tell us anything.
No, I mean that tells us a lot. Because that lessens that whole argument I just had about Noah Gray. If he pops in a touchdown, he's probably on the optimal discussion. I mean, Mark Andrews has 2 touchdown upside here. He has, even if he's playing 60% of the offensive snaps,
just like he did as a rookie and the other years that he's played in the league,
right? And he still had multiple.
I'm not really worried as long as he's running routes every time he's out there and not really blocking, because that whole snap share with tight ends is always such a funny debate. It's I don't care what the snap share is as long as he runs routes. That's what Mark Andrews did. He was always mega efficiency, and everybody's well, if he just runs the routes of Travis Kelce, he'll beat Travis Kelce, and then he just never does, and he still manages to put up similar numbers to the top tight ends in the entire NFL. But I'll be playing Mark Andrews. I will be looking at him with Lamar Jackson, and just overall, I'm not in love with this game. The San Fran Detroit game is the game I want to get to, and I have a unique kind of way I wrote it up in the article, and that is out on the 33team.com. That will be something we get to shortly. But do you have anything else to add about this one?
Yeah, real quick before. Now looking at this ownership, it looks like about 155% composite ownership on tight ends. That means that more than half of the rosters in play are going to have 2 tight ends on them.
That's crazy.
So that is probably a theoretical mistake. So that whole discussion about playing multiple tight ends that we had before we looked at ownership probably goes out the window here. Knowing that over half the field is going to have 2 tight ends on rosters this week, I am even more interested in a guy like Mark Andrews. And the theoretical, it goes against the human brain to say now this increases Mark Andrews' viability, and it does it even further if he's the only tight end on the roster. So that is a very interesting theoretical component now looking at ownership that I think bears discussion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and something that we should definitely get to. But let's move forward to the Detroit Lions traveling to San Fran to take on the 49ers. Detroit Lions have had a bad secondary this entire postseason. The San Francisco 49ers did not look like the better team against the Green Bay Packers. Brock Purdy wasn't very good, to say the least.
Human, right?
Yeah, he should have thrown a pick 6. He had some miscommunication with some of the receivers, but they managed to get it going when it was needed the most, especially to Christian McCaffrey. The run play that he had. Dude. Juwan Jennings put up a really good number. Deebo Samuel was hurt. Deebo Samuel's a hurt shoulder. So the unique way that I was going to get to about this game is we know the 49ers are the favorite. They are a heavy favorite. What does that tell me about the Detroit Lions? Well, there's a great chance that they're going to be throwing the ball, and Jared Goff is going to have to put it out there. Detroit Lions offense line is amongst the top in the NFL. We saw the 49ers defensive line not look too great against a very, very good Green Bay Packers offensive line. They gave Love a ton of time to throw, and Jared Goff is a quarterback that's what he needs. If the field is going to not get to Goff as much as the other quarterbacks, and I look at Jared Goff and I'm thinking, we assume negative game script. we assume the field, like 70% in some single entries, 3-entry maxes will have McCaffrey in their lineups. I look at this and I'm like, what if it's a passing game shootout? What if it is Jared Goff like getting the benefit, like getting a screen pass to Gibbs? Amon-Ra St. Brown is eating against these corners because these corners aren't very good. I love the 49ers defense. Their corners are not the reason this defense is not good. Their corners were getting killed consistently against the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love was finding their guys, but they did this thing called hold players and defensive pass interference, and they didn't care that they gave up the 15 yards because at the end of the day, the red zone defense is pretty stout. And once they got down there, the Packers stalled out, missed some field goals. That's nor here nor there. They're going to play cover 4. That's their base coverage. That keeps a lot of things in front of them. How do you beat cover 4? You got to win over the middle of the field mostly. And that's where Amon-Ra St. Brown dominates. He has over 3.6 yards per route run against cover 4 coverage. He has over 35% target share. He's done it all year against pretty much everybody. I don't think this matchup's any different for him. This is a game where he should be able to win and win consistently. Then obviously you have Sam Laporta, who's had a phenomenal rookie year. His knee is made out of titanium because I don't understand how he's playing and he's playing effectively, and he's just good. And again, I think an underplayed stack this week will be a Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and running it back without Christian McCaffrey and just going to the other side of the ball and saying the Detroit Lions secondary is really bad. They are a defense that is blitzing at high rates. They're a defense that is trying to play man with you, be physical, and just at the end of the day, maybe Christian McCaffrey picks up blitz protection more. Maybe Christian McCaffrey is a guy that handles that slot blitz. And next thing you know, Brandon Ayuk is just streaking down the field wide open because he's in one-on-one coverage, just like Mike Evans was. Or maybe it's George Kittle, where as long as you're not throwing it to Kirby Joseph's side of the field, he should totally be okay. Because that, those knees with Kirby Joseph, scary things to do when you're a tight end catching the ball over the middle against the Lions, because that's where he's hitting you, and it's legal. And he's done it. He's torn 3 ACLs this year, I think. 2. Which is
2, and then the bone bruise / hyperextension. Yeah, no, Sam Laporta, right?
No, Kirby Joseph.
Oh, sorry, sorry, I don't know.
No, he did TJ Hawkinson. He got Higbee, and I think he was the bone. I think he did that
Higbee,
to Cole Kmet.
Yeah,
I think he hurt Cole Kmet as well. I could be totally wrong the last one, but regardless, that's there. But for me, Kittle is still a mismatch for this obviously 49ers team. The Lions are going to play a ton of single high. They have to. You can't go too high against the 49ers and expect to kind of win with their front. I know that their defense line and linebacking core is much improved from last year. This is just an offense that you don't really want to do that against. And as a result, like a Goff, Gibbs, and Monra, Kittle, Ayuk double, like that is going to be an underplayed stack. And those are all players that I wouldn't be surprised if Gibbs has 80 receiving and 60 rushing. I don't think he's going to have the same success that Aaron Jones had, but also Aaron Jones and the Packers just gave you guys, like the Lions, the blueprint of like, hey,
yeah,
your receivers do block. Josh Reynolds blocks. He blocks his ass off. Jameson Williams, he tries. He's a little undersized, but I saw Dontavian Wicks block Chase Young.
Yeah, Jameson, I've actually been impressed with his blocking over the second half of this season.
Yeah, he's trying. Like he's out there throwing his body out there and doing what he's going to do. And so anyways, long story short is that I think the Goff side of this from a passing perspective is unique and underplayed for a team that we know is going to be throwing. Like he's got to throw in this matchup. It may be 330 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. It could easily be that side of the ball, but it doesn't feel like the field is getting to it just because you have Mahomes like what 400 more. And I think isn't Purdy the cheapest quarterback on the slate? Could be wrong.
Maybe no, Goff is.
Yeah. But like, regardless, I still think Purdy, Ayuk, and Kittle is going to be way more played than a Goff with Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and that side of the ball. So, Hilo, how are you feeling about this game? Tell me what you like about it.
Yeah. So there's one player that has the biggest influence on this game, and it's Deebo Samuel. whether he plays or not, I think is going to affect this game massively. Because you look at the 4 games this year where Deebo Samuel was either out or injured in, the 49ers scored 17 points, 17 points, 17 points, and 24 points last week against the Packers with 10 in the fourth quarter. So you compare that to their season-long average of over 28 points per game. It's very clear that this offense, Brock Purdy and Shanahan, are better when they have Deebo Samuel on the field. And why is that? Is because he is this queen chess piece. He is this piece that makes defenses have to account for him. He'll be in motion in the backfield. He'll run jet sweeps without seeing the ball. He'll do all these things because of the threat of Deebo Samuel with the ball in his hands is so great. So can the 49ers score early without Deebo Samuel or with a hobbled Deebo Samuel? I don't know. And if I am sitting in Shanahan's shoes right now, I am saying, how do we score early? Because we know that the strength of our defense is with our front 4 and our linebacking core. We know our secondary is not it. So how do we remove Jared Goff from the game? We pressure Jared Goff. And how can we do that? If we're playing with a lead, we can send more pressure, yada, yada, do those different things. So in my mind, Deebo Samuel is the most important singular piece for this game. Also, center Frank Ragnow is going to play. He's been cleared, but offensive guard Jonah Jackson has been ruled out. So that is a hit to this. We know that the Lions' offensive line is one of their stronger points of their offense. So that's a slight hit to their expectations of picking up pass pro against this vaunted San Francisco 49ers pass rush. So yeah, Deebo Samuel and San Francisco's ability to score early and make the Lions play from behind, because this team is not built to play from behind. They are built to play close. They are built to play with a lead. So what do you want to do? You want to get Dan Campbell in uncomfortable territory. You want to score early and make him play from behind. They're more likely to do that if Deebo is on the field. That said, I do think that the Lions are going to be forced to play more man coverage, more cover 1. Dan Campbell is a crazy man. And we know that their defensive coordinator and kind of his tendencies that we've seen this season, he's been a crazy man as well. But probably not going to see a ton of cover 0. It's probably going to be base cover 2 with cover 1 thrown in depending on the situation. If that's the case, Brandon Ayuk is absolutely set up for an eruption here. He has been kind of this like behind the scenes guy. I mean, he's had like one blow up game over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season.
He's not. He's not an every single snap player. I am absolutely in love with him in this league. I think if I had to pick one player that I'd lock into my lineups, it's him.
Yeah. So Brandon Ayuk is absolutely set up in this spot. So now it becomes like we can remove the uncertainty with Deebo Samuel by saying the line, like we can build rosters to kind of account for that, like theoretical discussion of how this game is going to play out by saying, well, Brandon Ayuk is one of the ways that they can get there quick and early. We can pair Brandon Ayuk with the San Francisco 49ers defense, which is counterintuitive of some sorts. Most people are going to be like, well, you pair Christian McCaffrey with the San Francisco 49ers defense because that's what we do. But the way to give Kyle Shanahan's defense the freedom to get after a quarterback that struggles with pressure is to score early. And that is more likely to come from Brandon Ayuk or George Kittle I guess, than it is Christian McCaffrey against the defense that is holding opposing backfields to the fewest DraftKings points per game in the league this season. They have not given up 70 yards rushing on the ground all season. This is a very, very good, and it's because of their improvements in the linebacking core that we've talked about, a very, very good team against the run. So there's interesting ways to build rosters to account for the different ways that this game could play out. The other side of that coin is like if Deebo Samuel's out or if he's hobbled, and the 49ers are not able to put up those points early, this game is probably going to play to a more back and forth affair. And that doesn't necessarily mean high scoring. That just means that it's probably going to stay within a possession for deep into the game. That is where Dan Campbell wants to be. So that is where that like mega stack that you're talking about, that mega game stack, is extremely pertinent and viable, for if the game plays out like that, Now we're getting both teams having to stay aggressive on offense, and we could see it play out a little bit differently. Highly unlikely that the Lions build up a big lead just based on how they're built, how their defense is built. So that's kind of the tertiary potential outcome of this game. I don't see it playing out, but you can build interesting ways like that by playing both Detroit running backs. Just saying, hey, they score 3 or 4 touchdowns and 3 of them come on the ground, or 2 the running backs. Interesting way. Again, less likely, but there's ways to build for the potential ways that this game could play out that I think the field is not going to be thinking about.
Yeah, this is the one where you get different. I mean, it starts with Christian McCaffrey and it just ends with how you figure that out. Like,
Yeah.
McCaffrey, to me, again, he has more games over 30 this year on DraftKings than he does under 20. And even at 9K, a 20-point output could end up being optimal. You're going to need some things to kind of go to the other running backs, or some of the higher price guys are going to have some of those nuclear performances so that he is not viable in this spot. So it's like you decide, like, the first way you start to slate is you decide whether you're playing him or you're not, and it's the easiest decision. It's the hardest. It has the most consequences, but like,
Yeah.
to me, it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna go with Kittle and Ayuk here, and if Debo doesn't play, I'm gonna go with Ray McLeod. If people are gonna go all in on Juwan Jennings, I will play Ray McLeod,
Yeah.
because I would much rather have the guy that I know is better on Yak, has a role that could be down the field. They obviously, I know Juwan Jennings had a bigger role this past week, and I know that he was targeted down the field. Juwan Jennings, to me, is the guy that's the chain mover, the Kendrick Bourne 6 years ago for this team. And I think that Ray McLeod, just from a theoretical, if this guy's not playing and I'm hoping the screen pass goes for 40, like, it's him. I think he becomes the receiver screen guy for this offense, the dude who lines up at running back and allows McCaffrey to play slot receiver type of situational player that they want. Obviously, it's not going to draw the attention of Deebo Samuel, but it's something that they can do with him.
Yeah, that's an interesting shout that I hadn't really pieced together. We know that Christian McCaffrey, his last 2 healthy games, week 16 and this divisional round that they played last week, he played 98% and 100% of the offensive snaps in those 2 games. So he's going to be out there the entire game.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, like, who is Juwan Jennings and how is he being utilized? Look at all of his catches last week. They're all over the middle of the field. They had him running ins. They had him running crossers. They had him working up to free Brandon Ayuk on the perimeter and to free George Kittle. They didn't necessarily attack those areas because of what the Packers defense was, what they were trying to do. They were trying to limit splash plays. I mean, it was the first game all season where I had been impressed by Joe Barry, and then he gets fired 2 days later. Anyway, I digress as a Packers fan. But yeah, Juwan Jennings is not running these upside generating routes. He's running a lot of crossers, a lot of slants, and a lot of outs, which puts you catching the football on the sideline. That is not like that. Requires like 8 to 10 targets to return GPP goodness, which is highly unlikely to happen, even if Debo misses. So I like that shout, Ray McLeod. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably Ray. What's the deal with Ronnie Bell? Is he's
just a rookie?
Because he was inactive last week.
Yeah, it's just
he's not hurt or anything, right?
No, okay. It's just a rookie stuff. And it's, again, like, I think if it was a year from now and we were in this exact circumstance, even if he was the inactive last week, I would be more inclined. But it's just because of him being the rookie that I don't think Shanahan puts him out there in this spot. Not after making him inactive and making McLeod active, and then having McLeod actually see the field. And again, McLeod had a chance. Like, McLeod had a huge touchdown if the Purdy and him were on the same page of, like, the corner fell. And Purdy decided to throw it, like, inside, and McLeod is just running away from everybody because he doesn't like to take hits, because why would you?
Because he's 5'7".
Yeah, like, there's no reason there, but that's kind of all I've got for that receiver. So out of Amon-Ra St. Brown, I like JMO from the big playability. I've always chased it. That's just, nor here nor there. But other than that, obviously Josh Reynolds has had some big games in the playoffs. I think he plays a similar role. He's going to be on the field a lot. He's going to run a ton of routes. Not going to be, I don't think there are a lot of high upside routes, but I think it's a lot of red zone work. But again, we just talked about the 49ers red zone defense is pretty good. And I think if you're going to beat them, I think the big play is like scoring from outside the 20 is just, it's quite frankly, as strange as it sounds, easier. Um, like, especially for the Lions, who, again, I saw Frank Ragnow with those knee and ankle injuries manhandle Vita Vea, but can he do it after a week of dealing with the sprained knee and sprained ankle?
He has 4 injuries listed on their injury report. It's like knee,
hip,
ankle, like
might as well put hip, head, back. His feelings, like everything hurts over there. Like he's all pro dude.
Oh yeah.
Centers are the craziest people in football because what they deal with on the interior every single play. Jason Kelsey and Ragnow being the best in what they do for their teams is tremendous. Ragnow in this matchup, he got through the Vita Vea game. I think he can keep up with Armstead and Hargrave, who are just going to be.
He's trading brute force for agility and quickness now. So it's a different animal, but still, I mean, good God, that's a murderer's row of defensive tackles. Tell you.
Do you like Jahmyr Gibbs in this game or no?
Yes, I think so. We look at how the Lions have performed and what they've done in the playoffs. 50%, exactly 50% of the targets for their team have gone to Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta in the playoffs. We now look at the fact that, like, how do you attack the San Francisco defense schematically? It's deep and on the perimeter. They don't necessarily have that. JMO is a guy. Yeah. He's a guy, but
he hasn't done it. But I also think it's Goff being gun shy a lot.
Yes, and now that they're missing Jonah Jackson, does that help or hurt those chances? So to me, Jahmyr Gibbs is the player that has the most upside to see his role in the passing game grow. And he has the additional out of his team is 7.5-point underdogs right now, and he might see a higher snap rate than David Montgomery. So yeah, I like Jahmyr Gibbs a good bit. Of course, David Montgomery will probably score 3 touchdowns from the 1-yard line and completely sink that. But no, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown is kind of where I'm living and choosing, because I just looked at ownership and the field is choosing to get their value, just like last week, from this secondary Detroit Lions pass catchers, Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds. So if the field is going there, I kind of want to stick to the primary pieces with adding Jahmyr Gibbs into that and look to sneak in some value through the uncertainty from the first game on the slate.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't hate that idea at all. Rashad Bateman's my favorite guy over there. Obviously, Odell, like you can play any of them. There's no right answer. It's just where my
Chris Conley might be an interesting guy in the same vein as Ray.
That's true. I mean, he did play a little bit. The only thing is it's Chris Conley. You know?
Yeah. It's not like we're not excited about this.
He could catch a touchdown on the red zone. I don't think he could do it down the field. Like I don't like Ray McCloud is interesting because like you may get a punt return. Like I don't know. He could just return a kick to the house and then stack Ray, 49ers DST, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta. Bang, unique. No,
yeah. What was kind of telling to me last week is Chris Conley, like, obviously has joined the team late. He's been injured.
I played him on the showdown slate when Ronnie Bell was 40%.
Yeah, he played 7 more snaps than Ray did last week. Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting name to keep track of. Pending Debo, obviously.
That makes sense. But that's all I got for this one. Hilo, do you have anything else you like that?
Nope.
Well, good luck, buddy. Hopefully you take down everything this weekend because it's always easy to take down 2-game slates. Feel free to reach out to me on the Discord. And as always, subscribe to the 33rd Team Fantasy and Betting channels so that you can get all of our advice, all of the great work that we do. And be sure to check out the main website. My main slate article is out where I just go through a deep dive of these 2 games. And I believe we'll have more articles on the way. Thanks, guys, and enjoy your weekend.